How do we know God exists? We talked about this last time from Psalm 19 and saw that the heavens declare God's glory. Today we're going to look at Romans chapter 1 and see that we look around nature that we live in and look at ourselves as well. Look at all of creation and see not only that God exists, but that he is glorious. And we're looking at Romans chapter 1, verses 18 through 22. We read, "For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. For what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them. For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived, ever since the creation of the world, in the things that have been made. So they are without excuse. For although they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks to him, but they became futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Claiming to be wise, they became fools, and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images resembling mortal man and birds and animals and creeping things." So, through everything that surrounds us, and even our own bodies, we should be able to see and perceive the existence of God. And not only his existence, but that he is eternal and that he has eternal power and he is of divine nature. We should be able to see in creation that God is greater than us, that he has this eternal power and divine nature. So, by looking around, we should be able to see and perceive some of these characteristics about God. Now, we could talk about a whole lot of different things here. We could discuss the intricacies of the human body. We could discuss DNA and the encoded messages within DNA. We could discuss all sorts of different things. We could talk about things like the beauty of the mountains and the beauty of the different locations on this earth. And all of those would be valid things to discuss and are worthy of our thought. All of them should point us to God, this God who has created the world in power and might, who has created this beautiful existence. We look at these things and we see that chaos did not create them, that blind chance did not create them, nor could that ever happen. No matter how many times it is said, you could never put a monkey in a room with a typewriter and give him millions of years and him ever type out Shakespeare. It could never take place. In fact, someone did a study on it and they tried to see if this would happen. And what actually happened is they typed for a little while until they started urinating on the computer. Now, I say that just to say, blind chance doesn't create things, especially things of that sort of beauty and order. Now, I do want to talk about dirt. I think in just looking and thinking about dirt, the ground that we stand on, step on every day, and think about how it points us to the Creator will help you to see what exactly I'm talking about. It is thought that in a meter squared of dirt, good soil that is for growing things in. I like to garden, so this is soil that would grow crops that you could eat, grow them very well. It would be good, nutritious soil. It is thought that in good, nutritious soil, there's about 1 billion different organisms living within a meter by meter square of good garden soil. Now, that's going to include things like bacteria and fungus. It's going to include different things that you might not have immediately thought of when we talk about organisms, but they're going to be in there, along with things that like mites and little other small bugs that you've seen out in your own garden or when you've been out. Roly-polies, worms, all of these sorts of things are found in the dirt in good garden soil. Well, in that good garden soil, those billion organisms have a job to do that actually helps the plants. The different things that they do in the dirt causes there to be nutrients that the plants feed on. So whatever they produce is stuff that the plants feed on. This good, nutritious soil having all of this life in it is going to enable a plant to grow and grow well and grow good crops. That's why a person who has a garden spot that they want to survive for more than 1 year, or thrive for more than 1 year, really, they're going to be putting compost and different things in to cause the soil to have more life in it. They're wanting this to grow and to keep happening year after year, so they've got to keep the life supplied within that soil. Well, this life, so this soil that has all of this life in it feeds the plants, and the plants feed animals. Animals, ruminant animals, the ones I'm thinking of right now, they have the multi-chambered stomachs and are able to actually eat grass and eat different things that we can't eat. I could not go outside and eat a wheelbarrow full of grass and gain much nutrients from that. My digestive system does not work in such a way that makes that possible. So there are animals that do. Cows being the one that we think of immediately in America today, but there are others. But a cow itself produces all sorts of things from that grass. It eats grass and it produces milk. It produces butter. It produces cream. It produces cheese. It produces, I'm probably left some things out, and meat. All of that coming from the cow giving all of this nutrients coming from just grass. These living creatures within the soil fed the plants that fed the cow that feeds us. We eat other crops to be healthy. We have fruits, we have vegetables, we also have meat. We have all of this stuff in our diet, and we start thinking about how all of this came about, and we should be a little bit awestruck that this cycle of life exists where these little creatures in the ground produced all of this life that is given through the life cycle itself. And I just touched a small part of it. There are so many other aspects of this that we could dive into that are so intriguing, but all of it is awe inspiring. God created a world in which this intricate detail exists, this intricate creation, this dance of everything coming together, living together, and all of this working the way that it does just points us to see the beauty and goodness and wisdom and might and power of God. Blind chance doesn't make these things happen. Chaos doesn't make these things happen. God does. God makes these things happen. And when we look around the world and we think about what it is that we see, or what it is that we stand on in the case of dirt, we see that what can be known about God is plain to us because God has shown it to us. God has revealed himself to us in nature. We've seen his eternal power and his divine nature in nature itself, in creation itself. And that leaves us without excuse before God. We have no excuse for saying that God doesn't exist or for not seeking after him. And so I leave the end of this with a word of caution. If you're watching this video and you're trying to figure out whether God exists or not, I just want to say he does, and as you look around the world, you can see that as you examine things and how the interplay of all of the things in this creation and how intricate it is and how detailed it is and how it works together. You wouldn't go out and see a watch lying out in the parking lot and all the details of an old style watch. You wouldn't look in there and think that someone just that chaos made that happen. You would think that there is a creator that made it happen. And these things within creation that we have been talking about are so much more detailed than a watch. So much more intricate than a watch. And it leads us to understand that God does exist And it leads us to see that we ourselves are without excuse, that we have an opportunity here and now to turn from our sins and trust in Jesus Christ, who came and accomplished salvation for us. That God the Son took on human flesh and lived among us. He paid the price for our sin. God, who created the world, sent his Son because we were rebel sinners and who had earned his wrath and his justice. And he sent his Son to save us, who lived a perfect life and died, bearing the punishment of sin upon himself as he bore God's wrath on the cross. He rose from the grave 3 days later. All those who turn from him are redeemed. They are brought from death to life. They were made part of God's family. We look at creation and we can see that God exists. We can see his eternal power. We can see his divine nature. But it's only as we look into his word that we find that we need to turn from our sins and trust in Jesus. If you do that, the next step is to get to a good local church.